Okay, we're back for video B for week 4, and just to show that I show no partiality to one version over another, we'll do this problem in Excel 2003. So you Excel 2007 folks will have to interpret, and I'm sure you won't have any problem doing that. Excuse me. I'm doing problem 3.21 on page 133, and we're given the airline, top 10 airlines, or 10 airlines. I don't know if they're the top 10 or were the top 10. Delta and United and Northwestern have one, for one thing. So, and I think JetBlue's come up in their rankings too. At any rate, what we're going to do is 4 things. We're going to calculate the mean, or the range, the mean, variance, standard deviation, and the z-score for each of these airlines. Okay, let's start out with a range. That's an easy one. We're going to have a minimum and a maximum. And you could just look and tell that, well, they're in rank order, right? 2.4 and 22.6, or you could min of the range, if they're not sorted, and max of the range. But believe me, if you don't want to learn how to do this, don't feel that you have to. I'm just showing it to you as an added bonus, more value for your tuition dollar here at Business 2220. That's my motto. Okay, what's the mean? Well, we could do this one of 2 ways. We could add up all the values. Let's do that. We could sum it, and here in Excel 2003 they put the sigma sign right where it's easy to find. I hate it when it's way over to the right there. So I'll just click on the sigma, which gives me the sum formula, and it's smart enough to say, well, there's a list of numbers right above me. I'll use them, which is exactly what I want. So all I have to do is hit enter, and the sum of all those, I like to underline things so that I know that that's a summation, is $114.3 billion. Okay, the mean then is equal to what? The sum divided by the number of airlines. Anybody count how many of those are? I couldn't count. Let's see. I think it's 10. But I'll just count the words over here, see what that gives me. Ooh, divide by 0. It didn't find it. You know why? Because it counts numbers, not letters. If I want to count things that have letters in them, I have to put a count A for alpha in it. And sure enough, that gives me 10. And the average is $11.43 billion. That's the average airline. Okay, what's the variance? Oh, let's do that just one other way. We could just say average, right? And Excel would calculate it for us. I don't know why they didn't ever change things to say mean. 11.43, and we knew that. Okay, what is the variance? Well, we could again do it one of a couple of ways. We could calculate it by hand or use Excel. Let's calculate it by hand, and I want to make a point. What we're looking for, first of all, is the average of the mean squared value of all these airlines. What is the mean squared error? Well, it's equal to the revenue of each airline minus the mean, the average value. So this airline, American Airlines, had 22.6 billion of revenue. The average is 11.43. Well, we can see that the difference is going to be about $11.17 billion. Now, that's the difference. But we want to do one more thing. Rather than just using the difference, we're going to use the square of the difference, because that makes all the pluses and minuses come out to be plus sides. When you square a negative number, you get a positive number. And so, for other mathematical reasons we won't go into here, we're going to do it as a squared value. Now, obviously I want to get a hold of that little black square and just drag it right down, but boy, if I do that, look what's going to happen. C29, I'm going to take B14 and subtract C29. Well, what's in C29? That's way down here. Nothing is in cell C29. That's because I forgot to put my dollar sign in. I want the B20 value to stay the same as I drag down. So I'll put, C20 value. So I'll put a dollar sign in front of the 20. And then when I drag down and look at good old JetBlue, The difference now is B14 minus C20, which is what I want, 2.4 minus 11.3. That's about 9, and 9 squared is 81. So you can see it's taken a negative 9 and made it into a positive 81. So JetBlue's variation from the mean, squared deviation from the mean, is 81, whereas American Airlines is 124. They're being treated on an equal basis, even though one is greater and the other is less. You notice that U.S. Airways is almost right on the mean. They're very average. Okay, so the variance then is equal to what? Well, if we look at page, where is it in the book here? I wanted to point this out to you in the book. We have to go back to page 126, and the variance, we have to decide first of all, is this a population or is this a sample? Well, if this was a sample of all possible airlines out of a whole bunch of airlines, we'd say it's a sample. But these are the real live airlines. These are the only ones we're interested in. So we're really dealing with a population. So the formula is the one given in the text there. Well, if you could look at page 125 in the blue box towards the bottom, the population variance is the squared deviations of the individual measurements from the population mean, is the average. So what we would do to get the average would be to take the sum of all these, I'll use my sigma again, all these squared values, which is 446.641, and the variance is equal to that value divided by the number of elements, and of course we know that's 10. Now, if this had been a sample, we would not divide by n, we'd divide by n minus 1. And I'm not going to bore you with the derivation of the reason for that. It gets beyond the scope of this course, as they say. But trust me, if it's a sample, you've got to divide by n minus 1. If it's a population, to divide by n. So it's important for you in doing these problems to watch out for the gotchas in the quiz. They'll say it's a population, and you have to remember whether it's n or n minus 1. Has to do with the number of degrees of freedom, if you must know. At any rate, the other way we could do it is var p, variance. Let's see, this doesn't give me the clues like it does in the new one. Var p, there it goes, and the numbers. So all I have to do is select these numbers, the actual data numbers. Now, no squares, it'll do all the squaring for me. And sure enough, it gives me the same answer. Don't have to calculate the mean even. Now the standard deviation is equal to the square root. In Excel we do SQRT, and if you don't want to use Excel, you better find your pocket calculator. I don't know where mine is. Oops, it has an error. What did I do? Oh, I mistyped it somehow. Square root, there we go, of C23, which is 6.68. And of course that'll get the same answer no matter which number I use. Okay, that's the standard deviation. Now isn't that nice? That says the average airline has a mean of 11.43 and a standard deviation of 6.68. Now we could do some funny things with the Chebyshev, with the empirical rule and all that, but what we really want to do is calculate the z-score. And the z-score is asking ourselves how many standard deviations is this airline from the mean. Is 22.6, and we know it's about $11 billion away from the mean, but how big is that compared to the average? Well, what we do is first of all calculate the difference between the value for this airline and the mean. And again, I'm going to just put this $sign in front of C20 because you know I'm going to want to tear this down. And this tells us how many billions of dollars each of these is from the mean. Now you notice I haven't put in no squaring, so I have both positive and negative numbers now. So if I take that and say $11.7 billion deviation from the mean divided by the numbers, the standard deviation, 6.68, and again I need to put a $sign in here because I want that to stay the same. That's 1 point. I'm going to make this a little easier to see. Show you what I'm going to do here. This little comma symbol, that makes it into a comma, two-digit comma value. It looks a little nicer is all. Then if I pull this down, what it tells me is that American Airlines is 1.67 standard deviations above the mean. JetBlue is 1.35 standard deviations below the mean. Okay, that's all I have time for. Think about that, though. This is a neat way to decide how far away from the mean it is. You can say, you're only a standard deviation. That's 2/3 of the airlines ought to be within that range, using the empirical rule again. Good way to eyeball the data. Okay, that's it for this review week. We'll see you online.